Breaking news today, CNN reports concerns that President Trump may be influenced by conspiracy theories. The critical issue at hand is determining who defines what constitutes dangerous dissent. Is mere skepticism now considered a crime against the establishment? Stay with us for more on this developing story.
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
CNN reports that Fareed Zakaria is discussing how President Trump could be undermined by the very conspiracy theories he has propagated. It's worth asking, what constitutes a conspiracy theory nowadays? Is it simply any question that makes the media uncomfortable? Or has it become a convenient label for genuine skepticism regarding the exercise of power in America? This evening, as CNN addresses what it calls President Trump's trap, consider who truly benefits from labeling public distrust as mere paranoia. Perhaps the real issue isn't the rumors themselves, but rather the dismissive arrogance of elites, Democrats and their media partners, who ignore the real questions posed by the American people. Let the show begin.
That turned into what the historian Richard Hofstadter in 1964 called the paranoid style in American politics, with periodic eruptions of rabid fear of Freemasons, Catholics, Jews, bankers, and communists. Joseph McCarthy defined the modern age of conspiracy theory, charging that the American government had itself been taken over by traitors and spies for foreign powers.
What we are witnessing is another instance of how the mainstream media and left-leaning academics use the paranoid style in American politics, a concept described by Hofstadter to delegitimize dissent against the prevailing orthodoxy. When Americans question the influence of secretive organizations or entrenched elites, such as Freemasons, international bankers, or the revolving door between government and big business, they are quickly dismissed as conspiracy theorists, which supposedly disqualifies their concerns from serious debate. This tactic is not new. The media and their Democratic allies have become adept at dismissing populist skepticism as irrational or dangerous, while ignoring their role in fueling public distrust. American suspicion of concentrated power, whether in government, finance, or media, stems from decades of broken promises, backroom deals, and a bipartisan consensus favoring globalist interests over American workers. As jobs are outsourced, communities hollowed out, and corporate lobbyists drown out voices in Washington, it's natural for people to question the official narrative. The Epstein scandal highlights this dynamic starkly. Polls indicate that a vast majority of Americans across party lines believe the government is concealing the truth about Epstein's connections to influential figures. This isn't paranoia, it's a rational response to persistent stonewalling and selective transparency from institutions that are supposed to protect us. Instead of addressing these concerns, the media accuses those demanding answers of promoting dangerous conspiracy theories, a clear case of projection by those who have eroded public trust. Both political parties bear responsibility for this crisis of confidence. It is predominantly the Democrats and their media allies who have honed the politics of division, using identity and fear to divert attention from their failures in managing the economy, border security, and foreign policy. They quickly criticize any Republican who challenges the status quo, yet were the first to propagate theories about Russian collusion and secret plots to overturn elections when it served their purposes. The takeaway is not that Americans should blindly trust any politician or party, but that skepticism of concentrated power is a vital part of our political tradition. The real threat to democracy is not the questioning of narratives, but the attempt to suppress debate under the guise of protecting us. As calls for censorship and foreign intervention increase, defending the right to ask tough questions, no matter how uncomfortable they may be for the elites in Washington or on Wall Street, becomes more crucial than ever.
The journalist Anna Merlin brought the story up to date in a deeply reported 2019 book, Republic of Lies, in which she argued that in recent decades, conspiracy theories entered into mainstream politics. Unlike earlier eras where conspiracy theorists were mostly powerless outsiders, now they are central and increasingly normalized figures in American political and cultural life. Donald Trump is the main character in this story, having come to power and returned to power after aggressively promoting birtherism, election fraud, and many other conspiracies. He has also brought into the mainstream people like Alex Jones and Kash Patel, who have trafficked in even more extreme theories and insinuations. Michael Flynn, Trump's first national security advisor, spread the lie that Hillary Clinton was connected to child sex rings.
Anna Merlin's argument that conspiracy theories have shifted from the fringes to the forefront of American politics underscores a broader attempt by the media and academia to pathologize skepticism towards entrenched power. When figures like Alex Jones or Kash Patel are labeled as dangerous for merely questioning official narratives, It exposes the establishment's fear of scrutiny more than it does any real threat posed by these theories. The true problem is not that Americans are asking tough questions, it's that the ruling class is desperate to avoid answering them. The left and their media allies have consistently dismissed challenges to their authority as irrational or dangerous. Yet these were the same voices amplifying the Russia collusion narrative and tales of foreign interference when it suited their purposes. Now, facing similar tactics, they decry these methods and call for increased censorship, surveillance, and government intervention. This isn't about protecting democracy, it's about preserving their power. The rise of populist skepticism is a direct reaction to decades of bipartisan missteps, open borders, endless wars, and trade agreements that have depleted the American middle class. The previous administration under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris intensified these globalist agendas, compromising American sovereignty and leaving our communities exposed. Their failure to secure the border, the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, and reckless fiscal policies have only intensified public distrust. In contrast, the current White House has prioritized American interest, resisted globalist encroachments, and demanded transparency from traditionally unclear institutions. Their initiative to unseal Epstein-related documents exemplifies not a diversion but a crucial step towards accountability, a stark departure from the previous administration's approach. The widespread belief among Americans, including a majority of Republicans and independents, that the government is concealing the truth about Epstein underscores the profound level of distrust. Policies promoting decentralization, transparency, and non-intervention abroad aren't merely popular, they are necessary. Americans are weary of being sidelined and told to trust the experts while their communities suffer and their freedoms diminish. The partisan divide is clear. Republicans largely favor reforms that prioritize national interests, whereas Democrats advocate for more centralization, censorship, and involvement in foreign conflicts. These differences will not only influence the upcoming elections, but will also shape the nation's future. The establishment's tendency to dismiss dissent as dangerous only highlights their disconnect. Americans will persist in their quest for answers, and no amount of media manipulation or academic skepticism will deter them. The real story here isn't about conspiracy theories, it's about a populace unwilling to be silenced and a movement determined to restore power to the people.
His administration has released thousands of files about the murders of JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King Jr. There were no smoking guns revealing any major conspiracy. But no one in the administration can quite bring themselves to admit that. It would suggest that prior administrations and elites had not in fact been lying to the American people. But to do that is to lose credibility with their base.
CNN's coverage of the recently released files on the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. exhibits a pattern of selective skepticism and narrative control. The network emphasizes the lack of the smoking gun in these documents, relying heavily on expert panels and academic voices that support the official narrative. This approach often overlooks the public's legitimate concerns that prompted these disclosures. The segments accurately note that the files, which include over 200,000 pages related to King's assassination alone, do not provide definitive evidence of a high-level conspiracy. CNN glosses over the documented instances of government misconduct, such as the FBI's illegal surveillance of King and findings of probable conspiracy in his murder, dismissing all skepticism as fringe or unfounded. The coverage lacks balance and objectivity, predominantly featuring panels of former intelligence officials and academic historians who have an interest in upholding institutional reputations. Populist and non-establishment voices are rarely given equal airtime, subtly implying that continued questioning of the official investigations is irrational, rather than a reasonable response to a government known for secrecy and deception. In terms of sourcing, CNN primarily quotes government reports and mainstream historians, omitting controversial findings like the House Select Committee's conclusion of a likely conspiracy in the King case, or the 1999 Memphis jury verdict that implicated government agencies in his death. This selective sourcing reinforces the preferred narrative and sidelines inconvenient truths. Visually, CNN excels in crafting an interesting story through archival footage, dramatic graphics, and somber music, suggesting a sense of closure. Yet, many files remain redacted and key witnesses are long gone, leaving viewers with more questions than answers. The polished production values mask the reality that transparency has been only partial. The Sintetherbieren and Ser summarizes the content of the released files, providing a digestible overview. Their reluctance to address the transparency failures of previous administrations, particularly the last Democrat White House, undermines their credibility. There is scant acknowledgement of the repeated promises of openness by Democratic leaders that have resulted in further stonewalling and selective disclosure. The real issue is not the disapproval of every theory, but the persistent public skepticism after decades of official reassurances. By dismissing this skepticism as mere paranoia, CNN fails to address the bipartisan legacy of secrecy, surveillance, and broken trust. The recent decision to release these files, although incomplete, marks a significant move toward transparency, contrasting sharply with the habitual opacity of previous administrations. Yet CNN portrays this as merely a defensive act, more about protecting elites than fostering genuine accountability. Americans have every right to demand answers and to question the motives of those in power. Labeling dissent as conspiracy only deepens societal divides and benefits those who thrive on a distracted, divided public. Until the media is willing to confront its role in shaping and suppressing debate, skepticism will remain not only justified but necessary.
Obama is the ringleader.
He brought up old allegations about Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, but they all have the feeling of desperation about them. As Charlie Wartzel notes in The Atlantic, just last Sunday, when the questions about Epstein were mounting, President Trump posted on Truth Social 33 times. He demanded that the Washington Commanders football team change its name back to the Redskins. He shared an AI-generated video of President Obama being handcuffed by the FBI in front of a smiling Trump in the Oval Office. Kash Patel, for his part, recently claimed on the Joe Rogan podcast that he has now found a secret vault in the FBI, full of dark secrets no one had ever seen.
The spectacle of establishment figures scrambling to revive old allegations against each other is a predictable pageant, especially when the stakes for transparency and accountability have never been higher. When Barack Obama surfaces as the so-called ringleader, trotting out tired narratives about Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, it exposes more about the old guard's lack of fresh ideas than their strength. This pattern of recycling controversies, rather than addressing past substantive failures, underscores the Democratic establishment's desperation to regain control of the narrative. Meanwhile, the economic consequences of this endless political theater are not lost on working Americans. As the media and political elites focus on personal vendettas and sensational distractions, pressing issues like rising costs, stagnant wages, and the erosion of small businesses are pushed further out of sight. Families struggling to balance their checkbooks face climbing costs for groceries, fuel, and housing, while Wall Street and multinational corporations benefit from policies crafted far from public scrutiny. Imagine a pie chart where the largest slice, representing corporate profits, grows fatter each quarter, while the portion for household savings steadily shrinks. Across sectors, the impact is clear. Manufacturing towns still bear the scars of globalist trade deals that ship jobs overseas. The agricultural heartland grapples with uncertainty as regulatory overreach and international agreements undermine local producers. Even the tech sector, often hailed as the engine of growth, finds innovation stifled by monopolistic practices and government collusion with favored firms. For consumers, this translates to higher prices and fewer choices, a trend most acutely felt at the checkout counter. The recent flurry of activity, like President Trump's push for transparency on the Epstein files and Kash Patel's assertive leadership at the FBI, signals a much-needed shift. Patel's background as a public defender and national security prosecutor brings a fresh perspective to an agency long plagued by internal issues. His willingness to challenge entrenched interests and root out corruption is crucial for restoring public trust, especially after years of selective enforcement and political favoritism. Yet, as Charlie Wurzel's commentary points out, the establishment's response has been to double down on narrative control. The mainstream media, rather than investigating the substance of these claims, resorts to character assassination and the amplification of AI-generated distractions. When a manipulated video of Obama being handcuffed circulates, it is treated as a democracy crisis, while the real crisis, the bipartisan failure to deliver for ordinary Americans, goes unaddressed. Kash Patel's recent revelations about a secret vault within the FBI, if substantiated, could expose decades of hidden dealings and further undermine the credibility of those who have long wielded unchecked power. The predictable pushback from entrenched officials and their media allies shows their fear of transparency more than any conspiracy theory. The purge of senior law enforcement officials, as reported by whistleblowers, aims to clean house and ensure that the nation's most powerful investigative agency serves the people, not political masters. For households, the long-term implications are profound. But when government agencies are held accountable and transparency becomes the norm, investor confidence rises, small businesses thrive, and communities regain a sense of control over their economic futures. Conversely, when secrecy prevails in elites' close ranks, the cycle of mistrust and economic stagnation deepens. The contrast between the current administration's focus on decentralization and past democratic policies of centralization could not be more stark. The previous administration's failures, open borders, reckless spending, and foreign entanglements, left American families more vulnerable and the nation's sovereignty diminished. Now, as the White House prioritizes American interests and demands real accountability, the establishment's panic is palpable. This is not about left versus right, but about the people versus a system that has too often put global interests and elite agendas ahead of the nation's well-being. The American people are right to demand answers, to question official narratives, and to expect that those in power are not above the law. The days of dismissing legitimate skepticism as dangerous or unhinged are coming to an end. The real danger lies in the continued suppression of debate and a refusal to confront the failures that have brought us to this point. This leaves us with so many things to consider. The real threat to our country isn't just some wild internet story. It's the arrogance of a political and media class that refuses to listen to the very people who empowered them. The previous Democratic administration, led by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, spent years overlooking working Americans, focusing instead on global priorities and perpetual conflicts. Now, with President Trump at the helm, we're seeing a leadership that prioritizes America, standing firm against globalist pressures and media frenzy. Perhaps the true conspiracy is the extent to which they silence those who dare to question them. Consider this: who truly benefits when you're discouraged from asking questions? Be sure to comment below. Give a like and subscribe. This is just the beginning. Stay tuned for the next one.